I am Michelle, 26 years old, fresh off landing my dream job as a programmer at a Miami startup, with a salary of $80,000 a year that screamed freedom. Growing up, my mother's chokehold on every penny we had felt like living under a microscope, especially after my parents split. I called her to share the big news, but her response was a gut punch. 70% of your salary goes to your sister, 30% to me. That's it. I laughed and shot back. I might be rich, but I'm not stupid. She screamed. Get out. You ungrateful child. I grabbed my stuff and walked out of our North Dallas ranch-style house. A week later, 45 missed calls from her lit up my phone. Then I found something in a box of old papers, legal documents about my sister's guardianship that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about money, it was something much darker. Before I get to my story, I want to know what time and what city you're listening in. I'd love to know how far my story has spread. Those guardianship documents I found in that dusty box kept me up all night, my mind racing with questions about what my mother was really hiding. Growing up in our North Dallas ranch-style house, I'd always felt her control like a shadow over everything. After my parents' divorce when I was 10, she turned money into a leash, every dollar tracked, every purchase questioned, all justified by my sister's asthma treatments. My sister, 22 now, needed inhalers and doctor visits, but I was starting to wonder if that was the whole story. Our house was comfortable enough, 2 bedrooms, a big garage, a small backyard where we'd play when we were kids, but beneath the surface, it was a pressure cooker. My mother, a paralegal at a local law firm, became obsessed with finances after Dad left. She'd sit at the kitchen table with her laptop, spreadsheets open, muttering about how we couldn't afford anything extra because of medical bills. Do you know how much your sister's medicine costs? She'd snap if I asked for new jeans to replace ones with holes. Your father left us with nothing, so I have to make sure we survive. I believed her at first. I was just a kid, and her stress felt like my fault. She'd talk about being scammed by Dad years ago. He'd drained their savings on some shady business deal before the divorce, leaving her to pick up the pieces. That story became her shield, her excuse for controlling every cent. If I wanted $1 for a soda at school, I had to justify it like I was on trial. Your sister's health comes first, she'd say, eyes narrowing. It wasn't just about money, it was about keeping us in line. By high school, I threw myself into school to escape. I was good at coding, spending late nights teaching myself Python from free online tutorials. I joined the computer club, took every AP class I could, and landed a partial scholarship to a state university for computer science. My mother took credit. Of course. See what my discipline did for you, she'd say, smirking, during a rare family dinner. But her discipline felt more like a cage. She'd check my bank account from my part-time coding gigs, questioning every withdrawal. Why'd you spend $10 at the coffee shop, she'd demand, even though I was paying my own way through college. My sister, 4 years younger, was caught in the same trap but worse. Her asthma wasn't severe, she managed with inhalers and occasional checkups, but my mother painted it like a life-or-death crisis. Your sister can't afford a single missed dose, she'd tell me, shutting down any request for extras like movie tickets or a school trip. I never resented my sister, she was my best friend, the one person I could talk to about how suffocating it all felt. We'd sneak out to the backyard at night, whispering about our dreams. She wanted to be an artist. I wanted to code apps that'd change the world. But money was always the wall between us and those dreams. The real blow came when I was 18, right before college. My mother sat me down with a stack of papers, saying they were for family security. I was young, trusting, and signed without reading closely some kind of financial agreement that gave her partial control over my earnings until I was 21. It's to protect your sister, she said, her voice soft but firm. I didn't question it then, but looking back, it was the first red flag of how far her control went. She wasn't just managing our money, she was managing our futures. College was a grind. My scholarship covered tuition, but I worked freelance coding jobs to afford books, food, everything else. I'd stay up until 3 a.m. debugging code for clients, then drag myself to 8 a.m. classes. My mother contributed the bare minimum, just enough to meet the divorce decree's requirements. She'd call to remind me how lucky I was to have a roof over my head growing up. I'm still paying for your sister's treatments, she'd say, as if my hustle didn't count. Every time I visited home, she'd hand me a list of chores: clean the garage, mow the lawn, saying it was my duty to give back to the family, my own bills, My own loans, those were my problem. The worst fight came during my sophomore year. I needed $500 for a required software course, textbooks, licenses, the works. I asked her for a loan, promising to pay it back with interest from my coding gigs. She laughed in my face. You think I have that kind of money lying around? Your sister's hospital bills are bleeding me dry. I found out later she'd bought a new car that year, a shiny SUV that didn't exactly scream financial hardship. I took out a student loan instead, the interest piling up like a weight on my chest. That fight stuck with me, the way her eyes glinted with control, not concern. It planted a seed of resentment I couldn't shake. Now, staring at those guardianship documents after being kicked out, that seed was growing into something else, anger, maybe even clarity. My mother wasn't just strict, she was hiding something. Those papers weren't just about protecting my sister, they were about keeping her under control, and maybe me too. I remembered every time she'd guilt-tripped me about money, every time she'd made me feel selfish for wanting a life of my own. I wasn't just fighting for my paycheck anymore, I was fighting for answers. That seed of resentment from my college days, fueled by those guardianship papers, was burning hotter than ever. I couldn't shake the feeling that my mother was playing a bigger game than I'd realized. A week after being kicked out, I went back to our North Dallas house for a so-called celebration dinner for my new job in Miami. I should have known it wasn't about me. My mother had insisted we eat at home to save money, dismissing my suggestion of a local diner. Why waste cash when I can make meatloaf just as good, she said, her voice sharp with that familiar control. The dining room felt smaller than I remembered, the air thick with tension. My sister Kimberly, now 22, gave me a quick hug, her smile warm but nervous. I'm so proud of you, she whispered, her inhaler tucked in her pocket like always. My mother, bustling around with plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, put on a show of pride. My daughter, the big shot programmer, she said, raising a glass of cheap wine. For a moment, I let myself hope this was genuine, that maybe we could move past the fight. But then she switched to her business voice, the one she used when money was the topic. Now that you're making real money, $80,000 a year, we need to talk family responsibilities, she began, setting her fork down with precision. I've been carrying this family alone since your father left us high and dry. Your sister's asthma treatments, her doctor visits, her meds, it's not cheap. I've given this a lot of thought. She slid a folder across the table, already open to a document outlining automatic bank transfers. 70% of your salary goes to Kimberly's care, 30% to me, to cover what I've spent raising you. It's only fair. The room felt like it was closing in. You're serious, I managed, my voice tight. You want all my money after taxes. You'll still have enough if you're smart, she said, as if I was a child asking for candy. This is what family does. Michelle, I sacrificed everything for you two. Kimberly's eyes widened, her fork frozen midair. Mom, I don't need, she started. But my mother cut her off with a sharp wave. You don't understand your own needs, she snapped. Those treatments keep you breathing. Michelle has a duty to help now that she's got a fancy job. She turned back to me, her tone colder. I've even looked up apartments in Miami. You can afford a small one in a decent area after your contributions. I've got it all figured out. I stared at the document, her handwriting spelling out exact dollar amounts based on my salary. She'd calculated my life down to the penny: rent, groceries, even my student loan payments. This isn't up for debate, she added, pushing a pen toward me. Sign it tonight, or you're turning your back on your sister. What kind of person does that? Kimberly tried again. Mom, please. But my mother's glare silenced her. You don't get a say in this, she said. I've been managing your finances since you were a kid. You'd be lost without me. I couldn't speak. Years of her guilt trips had trained me to nod and obey, but this was too much. My hands trembled as I stood, nearly knocking over my glass. I need to think about this, I mumbled, grabbing my bag and heading for the door. My mother's voice followed me. You walk out now. Don't expect to come back until you're ready to do what's right. The drive to my temporary apartment, a cheap rental I'd found near Dallas, was a blur. My phone buzzed with a text from her. You're breaking your sister's heart. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my best friend Stephanie, who'd known me since high school. We met at a coffee shop the next morning, and I spilled everything: the demands, the documents, the way my mother had controlled us for years. Stephanie leaned forward, her eyes serious. Michelle, this doesn't add up. If Kimberly's treatments are so expensive, Where's all that money going? Have you ever seen receipts? Her words hit hard. I hadn't. My mother always waved off questions with vague excuses about medical costs. Stephanie sipped her latte and added, "You should check her accounts. Something's off. I've heard stories like this, parents using kids' money for their own stuff." Her suggestion lit a spark. I'd been too afraid to question my mother before, but now, with my entire salary on the line, I couldn't ignore it. Later that day, an email popped up from my Uncle Robert, a family lawyer who'd always been close to my mother. Heard about the dinner. He wrote, "Your mom's just trying to keep the family together. You should consider her plan, it's for Kimberly's sake." But something in his tone felt off, like he wasn't fully convinced. He ended with, "Let me know if you need to talk. There are some things about the family finances you might not know." That line stopped me cold. Robert, of all people, hinting at inconsistencies. It was the push I needed. By that night, I was pacing my apartment, my laptop open to a spreadsheet. I started calculating my take-home pay after taxes, about $55,000 a year. If I gave up 70% for Kimberly and 30% for my mother, I'd be left with scraps. Barely enough for a shared room in Miami, let alone student loan payments or savings. The math didn't lie. This wasn't about helping my sister, it was about trapping me. The guardianship documents, Robert's email, Stephanie's warning, they all pointed to a truth I'd been too scared to face. My mother wasn't just controlling, she was hiding something big. And I was done playing her game. I had to find out what she was really doing with the money she claimed was for our family. Stephanie's words and my Uncle Robert's cryptic email were like a match to dry grass. My suspicion was now a full-blown fire. I wasn't just going to sit back and let my mother dictate my life with her so-called family plan. That night, after pacing my apartment, I emailed Robert back. "What do you mean by inconsistencies?" I typed, my fingers shaking. "I need to know what's going on with Mom's finances." His reply came the next morning, short but loaded. "Meet me tomorrow. Bring any documents you have. We'll talk." Robert, my uncle and a family lawyer who'd always been my mother's go-to for legal advice, met me at a diner just outside Dallas. His face was grim as he slid into the booth, a folder of his own in hand. "Michelle," he said, leaning forward, "I've been helping your mom with paperwork for years, but lately, things aren't adding up. I pulled some bank records she shared for tax prep. There's money moving that doesn't match what she's told you." He opened his folder, showing me statements with transfers to accounts I'd never heard of, thousands of dollars, far more than Kimberly's asthma treatments could justify. I handed him the guardianship documents I'd found. His eyes narrowed as he scanned them. "These give her control over Kimberly's disability benefits," he said, voice low. "But the amounts she's claimed for medical expenses don't align with these withdrawals. We need to dig deeper." My heart raced. This was bigger than I'd thought. Robert agreed to help me access more records, using his legal connections to request detailed statements from my mother's accounts without tipping her off. The next day, I drove to Kimberly's apartment in a subsidized complex for young adults with health needs. My sister Kimberly, always the artistic one, greeted me with a tight hug, her easel covered in half-finished sketches. "I was so scared when Mom kicked you out," she said, her voice shaky. "She keeps saying it's my fault, that I need all this money for my health." I took a deep breath and asked, "Kimberly, have you ever seen actual bills for your treatments, like real numbers?" She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "I wasn't going to tell you yet, but I've been recording her when she talks about money." I didn't trust her anymore. My jaw dropped as she played a clip, my mother's voice, sharp and dismissive. "Kimberly, your meds cost a fortune. Don't ask about the details. You wouldn't understand." Another clip had her ranting about investments that went bad, blaming the economy but never explaining. "I also started a savings account," Kimberly admitted, eyes bright with defiance. "I've been working part-time at an art supply store. I hid the money so she wouldn't take it." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. My sister wasn't just a victim in this, she was fighting back in her own way. "How much are your treatments?" "Really?" I pressed. She shrugged. "Inhalers, checkups. Maybe a couple $100 a month. The state covers most of it." That didn't add up to the thousands my mother claimed. I called Dr. Kim, my sister's doctor, that afternoon. After explaining the situation, she agreed to meet us at her office. Dr. Kim, a no-nonsense woman with years of experience, pulled up Kimberly's medical records. "Her asthma is well managed," she said, scrolling through her computer. Inhalers, one annual specialist visit, and occasional emergency meds. Total cost after subsidies is under $3,000 a year. Your mother's been sent these reports. I felt the air leave my lungs. $3,000 a year. My mother was demanding 70% of my $80,000 salary, over $50,000 after taxes, for Kimberly's care and her so-called repayment. Where was the rest going? Robert called later with more. He'd accessed my mother's financial history through a colleague at the bank. She's been funneling money into failed investment schemes, stock trades, risky real estate deals, he said. There's a pattern of losses going back years, way before you got this job. She's in debt, Michelle, and she's using Kimberly's benefits to cover it. He emailed me a spreadsheet showing withdrawals: 10,000 here, 15,000 there, none tied to medical expenses. One transfer matched the date she'd bought that new SUV during my sophomore year. I sat on Kimberly's couch, staring at the recordings and bank records. My mother wasn't just controlling, she was siphoning money meant for my sister to plug holes in her own bad decisions. The guardianship documents, those secret recordings. Dr. Kim's confirmation, it was a mountain of evidence, but it wasn't enough to just know. I wanted her to face the truth, to stop hiding behind her lies about family duty. Kimberly grabbed my hand. I'm with you, she said, her voice steady. I'm tired of her treating me like I can't handle my own life. Let's do this together. That moment sealed it. We weren't just sisters anymore. We were a team. With Robert's legal know-how and Dr. Kim's medical records, we started building a case not just to protect my salary, but to free Kimberly from our mother's grip. I knew confronting her would be explosive, but the evidence was undeniable. She'd been caught, and I wasn't backing down. The thought of facing her, of laying it all bare, sent a surge of adrenaline through me. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about justice. The evidence we'd gathered, bank records, Kimberly's secret recordings. Dr. Kim's confirmation felt like a loaded weapon in my hands. My sister and I, backed by my uncle Robert, were ready to confront my mother, but we knew a private talk wouldn't cut it. She'd just walk away or twist the story. Like always, we needed a setting where she couldn't escape the truth. So we chose the annual family gathering at my aunt's house in Dallas. A big barbecue with cousins, uncles, and neighbors, perfect for exposing her lies in front of everyone who'd believed her selfless mom act for years. The backyard was buzzing with chatter, kids running around, and the smell of grilled burgers filling the air. Kimberly and I arrived together, our folders of evidence tucked in my bag. My mother was holding court near the picnic tables, laughing with relatives, playing the devoted parent. When she saw us, her smile tightened. Didn't expect you two to show up, she said, her tone sugary but sharp. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my voice steady. We need to talk, Mom, about the money you've been taking. The chatter around us died down. My aunt froze with a plate of potato salad in her hands. My mother's eyes darted to the crowd, then back to me. This isn't the place. Michelle, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. But I wasn't backing down. No. It's perfect, I said, pulling out the bank statements Robert had helped me compile. You've been saying Kimberly's asthma treatments cost thousands every month, but Dr. Kim says it's under $3,000 a year. So where's the rest of the money going? To your failed investments? Gasps rippled through the crowd. My cousin Laura whispered something to her husband. My mother's face flushed red. How dare you accuse me in front of everyone, she snapped. Everything I've done is for this family. Kimberly stepped up, her voice calm but firm. Then explain these, she said, holding up her phone. She played one of her recordings, my mother's voice. Clear as day, Kimberly. Don't ask about the money. It's for your treatments. And that's all you need to know. The crowd went silent. Kimberly looked straight at her. I've got my own savings now. Mom, I don't need your control. My mother's composure cracked. You ungrateful girls, she shouted, after all I've sacrificed. Raising you alone, dealing with your father's mess. That's when Robert stepped in, his lawyer voice cutting through. Barbara, we've seen the records. You've been funneling Kimberly's disability benefits into bad stock trades and real estate deals. That's not sacrifice, that's theft. The word theft hit like a bomb. My aunt dropped her plate, and my uncle stared at my mother like he was seeing her for the first time. She didn't back down, she escalated. If you want to play dirty, Michelle, I'll make sure you regret it, she said, her voice low and venomous. I called your new boss in Miami yesterday. Told them you're unreliable, that you've got family issues, they're reconsidering your contract. My stomach dropped. She'd gone after my job, the one thing I'd worked years to earn. And Kimberly. She turned to my sister. I'll make sure your guardianship stays with me. You're not capable of managing without me, the crowd murmured, some relatives shaking their heads, others whispering in shock. I felt rage boiling inside me, but Kimberly grabbed my arm, her eyes fierce. She's lying, she whispered. I blocked her number last week, and I gave Robert all my recordings. I nodded, turning back to my mother. You're done controlling us, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We have the bank records, the recordings, Dr. Kim's statements. We're reporting you to the authorities for financial abuse. This ends now. My mother laughed. A cold, desperate sound. You think you can ruin me? Go ahead and try. You'll destroy this family, and Kimberly will suffer without my help. She turned to the crowd, playing the victim. See what I've had to deal with. My own daughters turning against me. But the mood was shifting. My aunt, who'd always defended her, looked uneasy. My cousin Laura pulled me aside and whispered, "Is this true?" About the money, I nodded, showing her a bank statement. Her face hardened. She was starting to believe us. Robert stepped forward again. I'm helping them file a report with Adult Protective Services, he said to the crowd. The evidence is clear. Barbara's been misusing Kimberly's benefits for years. My mother's eyes widened. She hadn't expected Robert to turn on her. You're betraying me too, she spat. He shook his head. I'm doing what's right. You crossed a line. The confrontation was spiraling. But my mother wasn't done. She leaned in close. Her voice a whisper meant only for me. Choose, Michelle, your job or your family. If you report me, you'll lose everything, your sister, your relatives, your place here. I'll make sure of it. Her words were a knife, twisting every fear I'd ever had about losing Kimberly, but looking at my sister, standing tall despite her shaking hands. I knew I couldn't back down. This wasn't about choosing between job and family, it was about breaking free from her lies. I met her gaze, my voice steady. I choose truth, I said. We're reporting you, and we're done with your control. The backyard went quiet, every eye on us. My mother's face twisted with rage, but for the first time, I saw fear there too. She'd underestimated us. Kimberly squeezed my hand, and Robert nodded slightly, his folder of evidence ready. The next step was clear. We were taking this to the authorities, no matter the cost. Her ultimatum had pushed me past fear into something stronger, resolved to end this once and for all. My mother's ultimatum at the family gathering, choose my job or my family, felt like a final attempt to chain me to her control. But standing there with Kimberly's hand in mine and Robert's evidence in my bag, I knew there was no going back. We weren't just fighting for my salary anymore, we were fighting for our freedom. The next morning, I sat down with Kimberly and Robert at his law office in Dallas. His desk was piled with our documents, bank statements, Kimberly's secret recordings, Dr. Kim's medical cost reports. This is enough for Adult Protective Services, Robert said, his voice steady. We can report your mother for financial abuse and misuse of Kimberly's disability benefits. Kimberly nodded, her eyes fierce despite the tremble in her fingers. I want this over, she said. I'm done letting her control my life. We filed the report that day, submitting every piece of evidence, the bank records showing thousands funneled into my mother's failed investments, the recordings of her dismissing Kimberly's questions, and Dr. Kim's statement that asthma treatments cost far less than claimed. Robert added a legal memo, detailing how the guardianship documents gave my mother undue control over Kimberly's benefits. It felt like loading a cannon, every document a shot aimed at shattering her lies. The process moved faster than I expected. Within a week, Adult Protective Services contacted us for interviews. They sent an investigator to Kimberly's apartment, a kind woman named Ms. Carter who listened as Kimberly explained years of being told she couldn't handle her own money. I shared my story too, the demands on my salary, the guardianship papers, the way my mother had twisted family duty into a weapon. Ms. Carter's face was grim as she reviewed our evidence. This is a clear case of financial exploitation, she said. We'll escalate this to the district attorney's office. 2 weeks later, we got the call. My mother was ordered to repay over $30,000 in misused disability benefits, funds she'd siphoned from Kimberly's account over years. The court stripped her of guardianship, transferring it to a state-appointed trustee until Kimberly could petition for full control. Her reputation in our family crumbled. My aunt, who defended her at the barbecue, called me in tears. "I had no idea," she said. "We thought she was struggling to keep you girls afloat." My cousin Laura sent a text. "I'm sorry I doubted you. I should have listened." Even my uncle, who'd stayed quiet, admitted he'd been wrong to trust her version of the story. My mother didn't go quietly. She sent me a barrage of texts, alternating between rage and desperation. "You've ruined me. One read. Kimberly will suffer without me, and it's on you." I didn't respond. Robert had warned us she'd try to manipulate us again, and Kimberly had already blocked her number after the gathering. We made a pact: no contact, no exceptions. She'd lost her hold on us, and we weren't giving her a way back in. The silence from her after the court ruling was deafening, a final confirmation that her control was gone for good. I moved to Miami as planned, settling into a small apartment with one roommate, a far cry from the cramped shared spaces I'd feared under my mother's demands. My job at the startup was intense but rewarding. 6 months in, I landed a promotion to junior team lead, with a raise that let me start paying off my student loans faster. I set up a savings account for Kimberly, contributing a small amount each month directly to her medical providers, not to my mother. Never again. It wasn't the 70% she demanded, but it was enough to give Kimberly real security without strings attached. Kimberly was thriving. She moved into her own subsidized apartment, a bright studio filled with her artwork. Her part-time job at the art supply store turned into a full-time gig, and she started taking online art classes. I messed up my budget the first month, she told me during a video call, laughing, but I figured it out. I'm not as helpless as Mom said. Her confidence was like a light switching on. One evening, she called me, her voice soft but strong. "Michelle, thank you," she said. "You didn't just fight for you. You fought for me too. I'm free because of you." Those words were worth more than any paycheck. Our relationship grew stronger, no longer warped by my mother's control. We weren't the responsible sister and the needy sister anymore, just two women building our own lives, supporting each other as equals. The extended family tried to reach out, some offering apologies, others asking to reconnect. I kept my distance, setting boundaries with them too. "This is between Kimberly, me, and our mother," I told my aunt when she pushed for a family reunion. I couldn't control their reactions, but I could control mine. My mother never reached out again after the court's ruling. Robert heard through a cousin that she'd moved to a smaller apartment, struggling to pay off her debts without Kimberly's benefits. I didn't feel satisfaction, just a quiet relief. Cutting her out wasn't easy. It came with grief for the family we could have had, but it was necessary. I'd spent years under her thumb. Guilt tripped into thinking I owed her my life. Now, I was free to define it on my terms. Sitting on my Miami balcony one evening, a year after moving, I reflected on everything. I'd learned a hard truth: family isn't always a safe haven. Sometimes, the people closest to you can hurt you the most, using love as a weapon to control. Cutting them out doesn't mean you're selfish, it means you're choosing yourself, your peace, your future. My mother's demands taught me to recognize financial abuse early, to set boundaries, and to fight for what's right. Even when it's painful, I'd tell anyone listening: prioritize your mental health. Question anyone who demands your money under the guise of family duty. And don't be afraid to report abuse. You deserve a life free from manipulation. Thank you all for listening to my journey. If this story hit home for you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Your stories matter, and I'd love to hear how you fought for your own freedom.